What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Rum Pure Sports Swing for the Fences MLB show. We're breaking down this Sunday afternoon slate, pretty big slate. We got 12 games on DK, 11 on FanDuel, couple weather spots, but it appears to be a pretty wide open slate in terms of the pitching options, hitting options, but we'll hop into it. We'll break it all down. Before we do so, I'm joined by my boys D-Rock and G Risen here on this Sunday morning. And we're going to go to you first, G Risen, and two things. First, I want you to give us your overall thoughts here on this slate. And second, we got a lot of questions. People want to know, are the Modelos flowing?
Well, we'll get to the important thing first. It's Sunday Fun Day. So yes, the Modelos are flowing. So cheers to you.
Be disappointed if it was any other way.
You know, that's the way it is. Actually, lady friend said today, is this going to be a drunken Sunday? And you know what? I think it may have to be. I plan on whooping some more ass today, so we're going to get into these plays, but I think it's a pretty good slate. FanDuel, there's only 11 games. Like you mentioned, we got a couple weather spots. But yeah, it looks like a fun day. Sit around the house. It's kind of cold and shitty out here in the local area, so nothing better to do to sit around my three big ass TVs and drink some beers and root on some of my plays here. So let's do it.
Sounds like a lot of fun. The other guy here is our boy D-Rock. D-Rock, what's going on? Just give us your overall thoughts here. I'm assuming you're not slamming Modelos though, right?
No, my wife ended up going out for the day, so I'm home alone with the boy today, so no Modelos for me. But, this is going to be a big slate with Coors not being on the slate and the Boston game looking like it's going to possibly be a rain out. I'm thinking this is going to be a fun one. I don't see any ownership going directly to one place other than maybe Oakland a little bit. But other than that, I think this is going to be a good one to attack. Lots of good offenses that we can go with, even though the weather is not so great. And pitching is, up in the air from top to bottom really today. I could also make this look real interesting.
Yeah, my initial thoughts, just kind of diving in and going through the slate is and we talked about it before the show here before we hopped on. It's a day for me, and you guys kind of agree, where ownership, I just don't think you really need to worry about it at any spot. Like pitcher, you don't need to worry about it. It's going to be pretty spread out. The offenses as well. With Coors being off, Coors is on the slate, it's a whole different story. Everyone's going to obviously look to jam Coors. Coors not on the slate, so I think it's going to be fairly wide open in terms of ownership. When I'm building my teams, I'm not going to really take into account ownership and whatnot. So if you guys have not done so already, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It helps us to continue to bring you guys these shows on a regular basis. If you haven't signed up at Rum Pure Sports yet, we have that promo going, RPS Heater 25. Gets you 25% off your first payment on a monthly package over here at Rum Pure Sports. Includes every single sport. We don't upcharge when new sports start. One price gets you everything on the website. That promo code is RPS Heater 25. Let's go ahead and hop into this. We have, like I said, there's 12 games on DK, 11 on FanDuel, so a lot to cover, a lot to break down. We're going to start, and we're just going to talk pitchers, and we'll kind of use DraftKings pricing to guide us through. So you head on over there to DraftKings, and we'll talk about the guys 8K and above to start. You got Woodruff at the top at 9.4. Been pitching really, really well lately. He's the most expensive guy, but you're looking, 27, 20, 31 fantasy points in his last 3 games. Gets a matchup here with the Cubs and Wrigley, and 12-mile-an-hour wind, 13-mile-an-hour wind blowing in, and it's going to be cold. Very appealing spot for him. Next, you have Ryu, Means, McCullers, McKenzie, Flaherty, who after opening start that was pretty bad on opening day, kind of got rocked by the Reds. It bounced back nicely, 26, 22, 18 fantasy points, been steady with the strikeout, 6, 6, and 5, 0, 1, and 2 earned runs. So he kind of got back on track after that opening day disaster. Tyon Rodriguez, Eduardo Rodriguez is in that game in Boston that we'll get to when we talk about the offenses, but it's not looking really good, very good from a weather perspective. Solid chance of rain basically all day. So pitching options there look to be relatively risky. Bundy and Duffy are the last two to kind of round out this 8K and above range on DraftKings. Toss it over to you first, D-Rock. What are you thinking here? Talk to me about a few of these guys and anything that stands up in this upper range on DraftKings.
Going right up top, Woodruff is, he's going to be popular today, going up against the Cubbies. Yesterday, I ended up coming off of Peralta really late, and it was a scary move for sure. But the only thing that forced me to do that was this is going to be the same with Woodruff as with Peralta. The Cubs have already seen him twice within the last, I believe it's 2 weeks. So this is going to be their third matchup against him. The wind is blowing in at Wrigley. So, I mean, it's just something that you're not going to feel comfortable doing if you do fade him, but I totally get playing him. I mean, it's a good play against the Cubs, who have a 27% strikeout rate against righties on the season. But for me personally, I get nervous just playing an offense against a pitcher. I mean, a pitcher against an offense when they faced them a week before and they're going up for the second time, let alone this being his third time out. But I mean, I get the play. He's going to be popular. And for me personally, I'm probably not going to be going there. I really have no interest in Ryu. His velocity was down in his last start, so I'm not sure if there's something to that injury-wise or what's going on with him. John Means against Oakland is a no-go for me. McCullers against the Angels is a no-go. Zach Gallen against Atlanta, with that being a shortened game, I mean, I could see a little bit maybe wanting to get there and hope for that complete game bonus, but that's also not real much interest. Flaherty against Cincinnati, I've seen some ownership pop up on Flaherty, and I not one to go with that either against the Cincinnati bats. I'd rather go with Cincinnati in that battle. And then one of my favorites though in this range is actually Danny Duffy at 8K for the Royals. He's got a 28% CSW coming into this matchup with a 24% strikeout rate, which isn't the greatest, but he's priced down to 8K to make up for that. But the Tigers have a 31% strikeout rate against left-handed pitching coming into this battle. So if anything in this range right here, I'm basically just looking at Danny Duffy, and honestly, that might be it.
All right. Yeah, I like that breakdown. Woodruff, I do agree. I think he probably does end up coming in pretty high owned. He's been on a nice little heater here, gets this good, weather matchup. And if people are paying attention to the weather, I'm assuming they'll be on him. That game has a pretty, what's the total there? It looked low. Was it 7.5? And Wrigley, 7 total. I mean, very, very low numbers. I do agree. I think he's the guy that comes in with the most ownership in this range. Now it's whether or not you're going to eat that or move on. You like pivoting, which I don't absolutely hate. It seems like a really wide open position today. G Risen, go to you. What are your thoughts here on this upper tier range?
Yeah, just kind of going off a little bit what D-Rock said. Woodruff probably will be, the most popular pitcher today. Like you guys mentioned, the over-under is pretty low. I show it at 6.5 actually, but the Cubs are only hitting 208 against right-handed pitching. Woodruff's had 6, 7, 8 Ks his last 3 starts. Pretty much I primarily play on FanDuel. So, I mean, he had 46, 37, 49 points. It is cold there. You mentioned he saw him last week, but I think Woodruff's stuff is top of the line, one of the best in the, he could be one of the better pitchers. The Brewers pitching staff just seems to be with him and Burns. It's just a great 1-2 punch. I really like Woodruff today. You also mentioned Duffy. Duffy's actually my favorite as well. The Tigers are terrible against left-handers. I think they hit 179 against lefties. They've only actually scored 8 runs this whole season in 160 plate appearances. Duffy's had 8 Ks. He's only given up 1 earned run this season. I do like that. The Tigers lineup is, I'm going to say, probably the worst in the majors. So I'm looking at Duffy as probably the strongest play in that tier. I also like Walker's a little bit below that price, but I had Walker written down too, but we'll skip him because he's in the next tier. But anyway, Ryu is another guy you mentioned. Tampa is actually has the second most Ks against left-handers. That'd be the only reason I would think about Ryu. But, he's only got a 22% K rate through his career, which isn't all that great. So, Ryu might be a guy you might think about MMEing. But then again, you look at Flaherty. I don't like going against the Reds. The Reds actually have the most home runs so far this season against right-handed pitching. I'm just kind of probably going to stay away from there. Flaherty's kind of been up and down a little bit, but yeah, for me in that range, it'd probably be Duffy 1, Woodruff 2, and I might take a flyer or 2 on Ryu, but that would be, in an MME. The way I'm playing with 3 or 5 teams, I probably won't have Ryu, but I do like the K upside there with Tampa.
All right, yeah, very good. We'll go ahead and hop into this lower tier range. I don't know if they've updated or not, but DraftKings had Bumgarner and Smiley tagged to start in this Arizona-Atlanta game, but that's not the case. You guys can correct me if it's changed, but last I looked, they had those guys tagged, and it's Gallen and Bryce Wilson who will be starting the early game, 7-inning game for the Diamondbacks and Braves, and both these guys are kind of in that lower tier. So be careful, unless they've changed it. They may have changed it since, but when I looked last, they had Bumgarner and Smiley tagged. They're actually starting the later one. Some names here that kind of stand out. And you go down. Luis Castillo is a guy that was very steady last season. Has had some ups and downs this year. Last game against Arizona, he was fairly popular. Only got 8.4 fantasy points, gave up quite a few runs. A lot of them didn't end up being earned, but it was a pretty rough outing for him. I'll be curious to see if anyone goes back to him. G. Risen talked about Taijuan Walker at 7.5K. Patrick Corbin, after getting absolutely rocked 2 starts ago, bounced back with a nice start against the Cardinals. He went 6 innings, 5 strikeouts, no earned runs, so kind of bounced back nicely. He's 7.4. Come down. There's a few other names in here. I'll just toss it over to you, D-Rock. Go ahead and break down this lower tier for me here.
One of the guy I really like right up top of this tier is actually Luzardo against Baltimore at 7,700. He's coming out of 30% CSW, only a 25% swing and strike rate, but Baltimore on the season has a 28% strikeout rate against left-handed pitching. And the wind is blowing in Baltimore, which will help out because, Baltimore is a hitter's park, but with the wind blowing in, that should kind of help it out a little bit. Luis Castillo, I have no interest in. Once again, last week when he pitched, I wrote him up as basically a fade in my article throughout the week. Everything about him's down right now. His velocity is down. You could give it to cold weather his first couple starts, but it was the same as his last start. It was still down. His swing and strike rate's down. So I have no interest there, especially against St. Louis. They're not the greatest offense, but they're also not the worst right now. So that's one matchup. He's going to get ownership just because of his name, and people see him below 8K. Now, he has $1,000 more than he was last week when he absolutely busted up everybody that played him as chalk. And then I have a little interest in Walker also at 7,500 against the Nationals, just for decent strikeout upside there. But one play that I'm really looking forward to going to that a lot of people are not going to do, and I got absolutely crushed by this a little over a week ago, and that's Patrick Corbin. Again, I'm willing to go right back there. I love going to these plays, a pitcher that just absolutely, make the world mad at him, just absolutely crush their lineups. I think he had like a negative 20 spot a couple weeks ago. And, the stuff's still there. And the Mets on the season have a 28% strikeout rate against lefties. And they actually have an ISO below 0.1 against left-handed pitching on the season. So that's one spot that I'm really happy to go to. And I don't think he's going to get any ownership just because of the fact that everybody still remembers negative 20 points from him not too long ago.
Yeah, and he bounced back last start nicely. Right around 20 fantasy points. So, able to turn it around. And I agree. I think Corbin is a very good play. Another play down here you didn't mention was Schumacher, but that's in that weather game. I don't think you can really go there. That's Pittsburgh, Minnesota. Decent chance of rain all day. He's only 6.3K, but like I said, that game is most likely gonna definitely some sort of postponement risk. I think he is a little bit risky. So we'll toss it over to G. Risen. Thoughts here on this lower tier at the pitcher position.
Yeah, I actually like the Corbin call. I was looking at Corbin. The Mets actually have have the least amount of at bats against lefties this season. They've only had 93 plate appearances, where a lot of other teams are in the mid 200s to 300 plate appearances. So they haven't seen too many lefties yet this year. Corbin does have plus upside for Ks. I don't mind that at all. I might think about Corbin. I haven't decided who my 2 or 3 pitchers are going to be. I do know who one is. I haven't decided if it's going to be Corbin or not, but I do like that. The Mets actually are as bad as the Tigers against lefties. They're hitting, like a low 200 against them. So I don't mind Corbin at all. And then you mentioned Walker, like I had mentioned before. I like Walker. The K upside's there. Washington does not walk at all. Walker has a tendency to get wild sometimes. So I think that might help out Walker a little bit there. So I do like some Walker, and then other than that, you talk about guys like Castillo. I'm not really a fan of Castillo. It just looks like there's something wrong with him. I'm not a fan at all right now. So I'm going to probably pass on Castillo. You mentioned Luzardo. Luzardo, Baltimore is poor. I don't mind Luzardo. I just think there's so many other options here today that you can look at. So I probably, playing on a 1-pitcher site, probably won't look at Luzardo. But you look at a couple other guys. Tristan McKenzie's another guy that, he's got some K upside. He's a little wild. The Yankees the Yankees, they do got some Ks in that lineup. So I don't mind that in a GPP type format, but I think I'm going to probably go to the upper tier. I probably won't look in this tier for too much, maybe other than Walker, maybe Corbin, but other than that, I don't really see too much.
One guy that I forgot to mention, and this would not be a FanDuel play. This would strictly be a DKSP2 play, but Michael Kopech of the White Sox. I don't know. I haven't seen something on how many pitches he's exactly going to get to throw, but
he's not stretched out yet.
Yeah, I'll say if we got something though that said he could go 80 pitches or something for 6,900, I don't mind that play. But against
I read they were keeping him to 50 to 60.
Oh yeah, okay. So then he's not even in play.
Yeah, you might want to kind of just. You never know, but he hasn't really been stretched out yet from what I was reading across the landscape. I think last outing he only threw 40 pitches.
Yeah.
So I would I'd be but he's a top prospect. Once he gets stretched out, that's the guy to keep on the radar. But I think right now he's not there yet.
And then speaking of 1-pitcher sites, I know JSURab and you play a lot on FanDuel. Couple just FanDuel specific questions. Just kind of give me your breakdown at the position on FanDuel and how it kind of changes versus DraftKings.
Well, I mean, you got the one game with the 7-inning game, with the Braves and Gallen and them. But as far as FanDuel goes, I'm always chasing the Ks. But, like I said, my favorite pitcher today on FanDuel is Duffy. I just think he's got 7, 8, 10K upside. He's going to throw over 100 pitches. He's only given up 1 run. I just don't see the Tigers blowing him up. So on FanDuel, Duffy's my number 1. I'd probably look at Woodruff as my number 2. And then, going down a little bit between Walker and Corbin, probably my other 2 guys that I'm going to look at. So those are the 4 that are going to be in my group. But other than that, I just think the pitching is, there's really not that DeGrom or somebody that just stands out. It looks like you kind of got a lot of, A-, B+ type pitchers today that are all kind of in the same kind of group. So, which
is wild because there's no big game totals. I mean, all the game totals are really low too. It's a very unique slate when you consider the pitching options paired up with the offenses. And, I guess we'll kind of just go ahead and hop into the offensive side of things. But before we do so, make sure you hit the like button, 75 likes. There's 340 people watching. That is, it's very hurtful, as our boy JT Hayes says. So, do us a favor.
I got hit that like button. Modelos to get likes or what?
Yeah. I mean, how many Modelos does JSURab have to slam in order to get these likes up? I mean, the guy's very capable. Look, there it goes, almost all the way down. We'll keep him going too if we get more likes. First game on the slate, we have Oakland, Baltimore, 8.5 total. And 8.5 total doesn't seem like a big number, but you start traveling through the slate, and 8.5 is the biggest number on the slate in terms of a game total. The A's have basically a 4.5 team total, which is, if you take away the Boston weather game, they have the highest team total on the slate. Baltimore coming in right around 4. We'll go to you, G. Risen. Any interest here in game stacks on either side, or does anyone stand out as like a one-off or positional play today?
Just looking at the whole slate here, I think that the reason why the over-unders are so low, you just look across the landscape, the weather pretty much sucks today. Winds blowing in quite a few places. So I think that might have a lot to do with it. When you're looking at it, I think across the board, it does. I mean, just while we were talking, I didn't realize they were all so low. Generally, there's always a 9, or 9, 8.5s, and a lot of 7.5s and 6s on the board today. But, I'm not really sure. I'm not really a fan of that game. The offenses are going to be spread out today. I haven't really fallen in love yet with a complete stack, to be honest. I got a couple spots I'm looking at, but I don't really see too much here that I'm looking at. Yeah, I'm gonna have to pass on that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's a slate we're probably going to be passing on a lot of games, and maybe it's a slate where you don't stack. I mean, when I build tournament teams, I typically like to stack, but this could be a unique slate where I don't necessarily fully stack some of these teams, just because the options are just so sporadic. D-Rock, toss it over to you. Any interest in this Oakland Baltimore game for you?
Yeah, I mean, the wind's blowing in pretty heavily from left field, but any other time you get Oakland against a lefty, like usually Oakland's pretty chalky. And right now I'm not seeing hardly any ownership going to Oakland. And I'm guessing it's because of that wind blowing in at 14 miles an hour. So I'm willing to take some stabs here on the Oakland righties, especially if I'm going to get them at low ownership. I mean, they are the hottest team in baseball right now, going against Baltimore and John Means. So give me the lights up kind of, give me Jed Lowry. I'll even take Matt Olson in the lefty-lefty matchup. Chapman hitting in the 5-hole today. I think that could take a little bit of ownership away. I like that. Piscotty. The only guys I really don't have any interest in is like guys like Andrus and Garcia. But I'll gladly take some stabs at Oakland when I might get them below 10% ownership, every single guy. And the Baltimore side, I don't have no interest in Baltimore today. I'd rather pitch Luzardo against them. And yeah, other than that though, that's all for me. I'll gladly take Oakland in the spot.
How many games Oakland won in a row? Like 10 or 12, something like that?
I think it's 12 or 13, I know.
Yeah, those ownership numbers are accurate. I mean, that's pretty surprising because you got a couple things obviously working in their favor. They're a hot team right now, and they have one of the higher team totals on the slate. If they're definitely coming in, if it's looking like they're coming in at a low number, I think I would be looking to get exposure here for sure, especially on this slate where we just don't have a ton of options. So I mean,
right now,
numbers are looking,
I'm not seeing a single one over 8% projected on.
Wow. All right. That's surprising then. I mean, if that is the case, I definitely really like getting some exposure here right out of the gate.
For sure.
Next game, we have Toronto, Tampa, 7.5 total. The team total for Toronto hovering right around 4. Team total for Tampa Bay hovering right around 3.5. This is a game where, with Tampa, kind of tough to gauge these hitters on, matchup wise, because with Tampa Bay doing the short innings for their pitchers and whatnot, makes it somewhat difficult. But when you look at the two offenses, there's definitely some firepower in both of these offenses, despite the low total. Keep it with you, D-Rock. Any interest here in Toronto or Tampa Bay?
I'll have a little bit of interest in Tampa Bay. Usually I'm not one to attack Ryu. But I mean, with his velocity being down, and it wasn't just like a half mile per hour or a mile per hour in his last start. He was down 2 full mile per hour in his velocity in his last start. So I'm willing to take a stab there, just kind of hoping that there is something wrong. If he's good, I do not like to attack him though. But for the ownership wise, I don't mind getting here. With Tampa, with Toronto bats, Tampa Bay is going to be bringing out, I I can't remember who's opening, but Fleming's going to be taking over as long relief. And that's just not a spot I'm really looking to go to. I mean, you can attack that bullpen, but on this big of a slate, this is just probably one of those games where I'll end up passing on.
Rising thoughts here?
Yeah, but you guys mentioned the starter for the Rays. I think it's supposed to be Luis Patino, but yeah, he's just going to come out and start. I'm not really a fan ever of attacking Ryu. He just doesn't ever seem to get blown up. So I'm not looking at any Tampa bats. The Blue Jays, on the other hand, for the prices you got to pay for a Bichette or a Guerrero Jr., and knowing that it's going to be a bullpen game, I can't say that I won't look there for one-offs. I wouldn't be mad at somebody if they landed there and that's something they want. But there's probably, as we get through the slate here, there's probably some better spots to look at. But, with the wind blowing in quite a bit, being in a dome today might be a small advantage, even though with that over-under being only 7.5 with a lot of the wind blowing in. But, yeah, I'm not all that enamored here with these Blue Jays or the Rays bats in this spot.
It's a good point about the dome. I mean, it seems like basically every spot where we're talking about the wind's either blowing in or it's cold or it's a combination of both. Maybe playing in a dome today is a slight advantage. These totals are low because of the weather around the country. So interesting point there. Next game is another weather one, Seattle, Boston, 8.5 total. 5-team total for Boston, 3.5 for Seattle. Now, if weather wasn't a factor, Boston would probably be the most popular team on the slate, but it is looking like a heavy dose of precipitation here throughout the day, around 80-90% when the game starts, 70-60% 3-4 hours in. This game looks to be at risk as a situation where you want to be in the Discord. We'll have updates in terms of how things are looking here in this game. But as it stands now, it seems too risky to probably play. Rising, we'll keep it with you. Are you willing to risk this one, or are you most likely just going to fade?
I think you were right with the Boston bats being chalky if this game is not a weather risk. But I sometimes in DFS playing a game like this, obviously they were probably one of the better spots here. They got a 4.8 team total. It is the highest. I mean, if you're willing to take a chance and sweat out the rain, that is a good spot for the Red Sox. But I've told people in the past, if you follow that MLB app, you can see it'll change to warming up. So if you see that like 10 minutes before the game, you obviously know they're on the field and they're warming up. So it kind of gives you a little head start. If you don't see that on there, you might want to start getting skeptical. There could be a possible delay. But if you get close to lock here and it's 1 o'clock or so, and that app says that they're warming up, I may consider throwing in some Boston players, hoping that they play through the rain. But as you mentioned, there's some rain coming in, but that is a spot you can get some leverage if you're willing to risk it. And, obviously if they go off with all these low team totals, you could put yourself in a pretty good spot and probably be really low ownership as well.
The ownership will certainly be low here because of the weather, unless some news breaks where, hey, it's looking better and it's just going to be a pop-up or something along those lines. But as it stands now, the weather here is going to keep the ownership low on this game as a whole. Even Eduardo Rodriguez would probably be pretty owned at pitcher without this weather situation. So you're really missing out on a pitcher and an offense. D-Rock, is this a game where you're willing to risk the weather to get these guys at a low ownership, or are you just avoiding it and moving on?
No, I'm just gonna avoid it and move on. I see like above a 50% chance of rain all the way into the night tonight. And MLB's been pretty good at not waiting too long to cancel these games due to like the COVID situation. They don't want the players all huddled up in the clubhouse. So to me, too many games on the slate to have to worry about this one.
Well, I will say though, real quick, the only thing that I see is generally when you got a West Coast team on the East Coast, they'll wait it out longer and they'll try to squeeze it in because it's just too much of a pain in the ass, especially them being in a different division. So they'll probably do what they can to try to squeeze that in. They don't want to have Seattle come back out at some point in time, back to Boston or whatever the case is. So they very well may try to squeeze it in. Now, if that's a division game, they'd probably cancel it without second thought. But I think, with it being a West Coast, East Coast type team, sometimes they tend to drag those out a little bit more.
And Boston did just, I think, they waited out one actually earlier this week and ended up getting it in when everybody thought it was going to be a postponement. So, I mean, I could still see this game end up getting a little bit of ownership, and that would make it kind of an easier fade for me, just hoping that it does get postponed.
Yep. Keep your eye. I mean, we got basically an hour and 40 minutes until this game starts. Definitely keep an eye out for any news that we might get, and we could potentially get the PPD, and then we just won't have to worry about it. So definitely keep an eye out. Our Discord chat will have all the updates that you need. Next game, Royals, Tigers, 8 total. Basically a 4-team total for each side here. Both you guys mentioned Danny Duffy as a pitcher. I'm assuming you have no interest in the Tigers bats, but the Royals bats, I mean, they're another team. They have guys that definitely have some pop here. The price tags kind of range a little bit. I mean, some are pretty expensive, but there's also some cheapies in here as well. Go to you first, D-Rock. Thoughts here on this Royals offense, and like I said, I'm assuming you're off the Tigers since you're on Duffy here quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm off the Tigers in this matchup. I absolutely love the Royals today. They're probably my top offense of the day. You finally get a game where the wind is going to be cruising out to left field. I think it's around 14 to 15 miles per hour. It's going to be blowing out. So I'll be stacking up the Royals any way I can, 1 through 9 tonight. And, like Fulmer doesn't scare me at all. I'm not even sure how deep he'll be able to go. I could see him being ousted by the 4th inning, and then you get a horrible Detroit bullpen to pick on with that wind still blowing out. So I'll be all over the Royals today. And mainly Sal Perez, I love him at catcher. I know a lot of people don't like to pay up. They like to punt. The prices are expensive. I think Witt's middle of 5K. I want to say 5.5 or so. Sal is up there. If Santana is in the lineup. He's be one of my favorite bats of the day of that stack. I'll have a lot of Carlos Santana, even one-offs and spots I don't stack the Royals.
Yeah, I like the call. I definitely think good spot. Weather's not terrible, like you said. One of the few spots where it's blown on. It's blown out quite a bit. I mean, 13 to 15 miles an hour out to left center field. And they have some guys that can punish. I mean, my favorite is probably Soler for I mean, good price on DK, 3.9K. Obviously, tons of pop for him. G Risen, like I said, you like Duffy quite a bit. I'm assuming you're not on the Tigers here. So give me your thoughts on these Royals bats.
Yeah, definitely not on the Tigers. Actually, Tigers get Cabrera back today, which, isn't he's obviously not Miguel Cabrera, but I was just looking, I'm surprised he's 2,400. Hall of Famer, 2,400. It's just sad. But anyway, the Royals bats, I'm going to give a little respect to Fulmer. He came out his last couple outings. He's looked fairly decent.
You're a homer.
I'm a homer,
Tiger slappy.
But I just think that you make a point about the bullpen. I don't expect Fulmer to go any more than 5. I think 5 would be his top. But then you do get that bullpen. But for me, I just think there's some other spots here that I might look at. I might take a one-off or two. Salvador Perez is always a guy. He's only 3.3 on FanDuel. You mentioned Soler. He's obviously a home run type guy, but when I look at this lineup, and if I'm going to full stack them, I just don't see 4 home runs or 5 home runs today. Even the Tigers bullpen being as shitty as it is, I just, some one-offs here probably be more my angle to it. This lineup here, I just don't see a bunch of homers. So I'd probably pass on a full stack, but I don't mind some one-offs. Santana's a great one. And Perez and Soler. So yeah, that's probably where I'd sit.
Okay, very good. Let's move on to the next one. Yankees, Indians, 8 total. Team total for the Yankees a little above 4. Team total for the Indians slightly below 4. Two pitchers you guys really didn't talk about when we broke it all down. So maybe potentially a spot for some offense. Obviously on the Yankee side, you get those big bats in there. Stanton, Judge, got Odor batting fourth. I think he is a pretty solid play. It's the price on only 2.7K. I think he's definitely solid. Second base, third base, eligible on DK. And then on the Indian side, prices are pretty moderate. No one really jumps off. Obviously, Jose Ramirez, 5'2", most expensive guy in there. But it's a slate where you're going to most likely, I mean, if we take the approach that you guys kind of laid out at the pitcher position, going to have some money to spend on the bats. We'll stick with you, G. Risen. Thoughts here on this Yankees-Indians game?
Yeah, obviously the Yankees are a team that I like to look at most days. You got Tristan McKenzie on the other side. He does have some K upside. There are some Ks in that Yankee bat. But then again, Tristan seems to be pretty wild at times. So I like to stack up against the pitcher that's wild. Actually, you guys mentioned Odor. He got bumped up to the 4 spot today. He's only 2,200. Stanton hit a couple homers the other day. They actually got Brett Gardner up at the top today. So I don't mind some Yankees. I think the Yankees could be a stack that probably go a little under owned today. That obviously has a ton of upside. But, the wind is blowing in a little bit there, 13 miles an hour. So, that's a little scary. But then again, can winds stop any of Stanton, Judge, or any of those guys? If Stanton barrels one up, I don't give a shit if he's in a hurricane. He's going to hit over the fence. So, yeah, I could see some Yankee bats. And then you go over to the Indian side. Italian, I mean, he's up or down. I mean, Franmil Reyes is a guy I always like to look at for a guy as a one-off. You mentioned Jose Ramirez. I mean, his price is down. I mean, usually he's a 4K or higher type player. We only got him at 3,400 on FanDuel. So I don't mind Jose Ramirez, maybe some Franmil as one-offs. But yeah, I think the Yankees might be a stack that might be low owned, and I think might be a little sneaky today.
Yeah, I'm definitely on the Yankees today just because the lack of options. At least if you go to the Yankees, you're getting some baked in upside. I mean, regardless of the matchup. So I'm definitely going to have some Yankees in my lineups today. D-Rock, what are your thoughts here on this game?
So I'm actually leaning a little bit more to the Cleveland side myself. I mean, with the Yankees, like you said, Odor, he's kind of hard to ignore tonight at 2.7K on DraftKings, lefty against the righty matchup there. But for me, I'm more on looking to go against Talion. The wind is just another factor that we're dealing with in pretty much every game out there. So you're going to have to bite into it at some point. And I'm looking at like a mini stack of Jose Ramirez, Eddie Rosario against the righty matchup. And then even throwing Franmil in there with a righty versus righty, which a lot of people I don't think will play Franmil today just because everybody knows him as a lefty masher. But, going back to last year, he's still hitting over a 200 ISO against right-handed pitching. So for me, I'm going to be personally more on the Cleveland side of this game, not so much on the Yankees side.
Yeah, I like the Cleveland side as well. I mean, I'm going to have exposure to both sides of this one. So let's go ahead and hop into the next one. We have the Nationals. We have the Mets, 7.5 total in this game. And again, we have a game here with 2 pitchers I think that we're all interested in. For me personally, this is a game that I'll be crossing off from an offensive standpoint. I'm going to have exposure to Corbin. I'm going to have exposure to Walker. Not in anything here offensively for me. D-Rock, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I'm going to be off the bats here as well. I like the pitching in this matchup. If you are looking to play some bats here, I don't mind like a Pete Alonso one-off. He is a little bit expensive at 5.1K, but he gets the righty-lefty matchup against Corbin. And, I could see him going deep if he had the opportunity today. But, I mean, other than that, he'd probably be the only one that I'd be looking to play from this game.
G. Risen, anything for you here?
With such a big slate, I'm going to respect Corbin in his last start. But if for some reason you feel as if Corbin is still broken, then, you look at some of these Mets, you mentioned Alonso. James McCann also is a lefty smasher. So if Corbin's having any kind of issues and, you're not sold on him being back, the Mets are somebody you'll get at a 5% or lower ownership as a stack. The issue is some of the bats I like, or the Nemos and the Confortos and, even Lindor, they're all better from the left side. But, James McCann, if you think Corbin's going to be popular and you want a one-off, McCann isn't a bad guy. 2,200 if you want to save some salary. He does generally crush lefties. So if you think Corbin's broke, you might want to look there. But yeah, I don't have any interest in any of the Nats bats against Walker. But yeah, I don't see myself going to Mets. But like I said, if you think Corbin's not Corbin, then the Mets are definitely really sneaky.
One thing to mention though about this game is you definitely do have to keep an eye on the weather, because there is like 30% chance of rain when this game starts. So for me, with the pitching in this game, if this game is a delay in play, then I'll still be on the pitching. But if it's looking like they're going to let it start up and there's a chance of an in-game delay, that might move me off the pitching in this game.
Yeah, they are talking about some delays.
Yeah.
In this one?
Yeah.
I'd assume I think the most likely, if there is, it's going to be a delay and then play scenario. The chance of precipitation falls off, quite a bit. I think it looks like it's potentially raining there right now.
Actually, it did improve from what I saw a little bit ago. Now it's saying that it's likely to play without issue, low chance of a delay.
If anything, it's going to be a delay at the start and play. They're not going to. I don't think there's that much of a risk for it to start and then get delayed. From what I'm seeing, so I mean, potentially keep an eye on this one a little bit. Next game, we have the Rangers. We have the White Sox. 7.5 team total, or 7.5 game total. Team total for White Sox in that 4.5 range, and I mean, wow, really low team total for the Rangers, all the way down to right around 3. That's a really low number, even on this slate. So you look at the White Sox bats here, and the wind, it looks like it's blowing out maybe like a little. It's like going left to right, so at a pretty steady pace, 12 to 15 miles an hour. You look at these offenses, I'm definitely not going to be on any Rangers guys. I think you can always make the case for Joey Gallo as a one-off tournament play. Massive pop, massive power, multiple home run upside basically in every single matchup. White Sox offense, I think, is pretty interesting. I mean, they have guys in this lineup that can kind of mash the ball. Price tags are pretty expensive. I mean, they're a fairly expensive stack, but with the lack of expensive pitching on the slate, I think you can get there pretty easily. Let's go to you, G-Rise, and your thoughts here on this game.
Yeah, I like the White Sox. The White Sox are always a team I'm looking at. I just like that lineup from top to bottom. You look at them, you got Mercedes, Anderson, Robert, Abreu. There's just so much power there. And really on FanDuel, their prices are pretty reasonable actually too. I was looking, and Mercedes is only $3K, Robert's 2,800. Even Abreu is only 35. You can get Moncada for 31. So, but Anderson's just been absolutely on fire lately. He's one of the hottest hitters in baseball, and I don't think Arihara is really anything special. So I do like some White Sox stacks, but what kind of bugs me here about the White Sox lineup is I don't like the bottom of it. Mangril is a decent contact hitter, but Collins and Garcia down there, I just kind of sometimes I think that might be a out or two that I just don't like the bottom of the lineup, but the top of that lineup is strong as can be. I really like the White Sox today. So yeah, I could see myself with the White Sox stack, and I would definitely start that with Anderson.
Very good. Yeah, I agree. The bottom of the lineup, not appealing from a DFS perspective. The top to middle, definitely spots to attack. D-Rock, any interest here in the Rangers or White Sox for you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything G-Rise said. I like the White Sox today. I could see them being one of the more popular teams on the slate. the pricing, like you said, normally would keep people off, but the pitching, if you're not playing Woodruff today, I mean, you're going to have all kinds of money to basically go up to wherever you want with your bats. One way I would get different is I know, like you guys mentioned, how there's not a lot to flip this lineup over at the bottom, but I would even try, especially on DraftKings, if you're on a 5-man them, to getting somebody from the bottom of that order in your lineup to be different. Don't just go 1 through 5 or even 2 through 6 with this lineup, because 1 through 6 in this lineup is all going to be the popular plays that everybody's going to attack. Nobody's going to go 7 through 9 with these guys. I don't have any interest in Texas. I do respect Kopech, even though he's probably only going maybe 3 or 4 innings. But one guy I don't mind is leading off is Willie Calhoun at only 2.5K. On DraftKings, if you want some salary relief, I don't mind going there. And then Adolis Garcia. I mean, the kid's showing that he's a stud, and he's still under 4K, so I don't mind going there either.
Yeah, Calhoun, good value punt. I kind of overlooked that price tag, 2.5K. If you need savings, I definitely don't hate going there. Next game, we have Angels, Astros, another 8.5 team total. So this 8.5 number, or 8.5 game total. This 8.5 number is the biggest on the slate right there. It's the same as Oakland and Baltimore. We have Bundy and McCullers. Team total for Houston, right around 4.5. Team total for the Angels, right around 4. Obviously, these offenses both have big names. Big fantasy players. So curious to get your guys' take here. We'll stick with you, D-Rock. Any interest in the Angels or Astros for you today?
I'll always have interest in the Astros. I mean, Bundy's been really good over the past 2 seasons, but he can definitely one of those pitchers that can still get blown up. Right now, I'm showing under 10% ownership on all the Astros. They got out the trash cans yesterday and ended up putting a whooping on the Angels and, helped me win a lot of money yesterday. So I'll be willing to go right back there again today. On the Angel side of things, I'm really not too interested in them. I mean, you really can never say you don't like Mike Trout or Ohtani, but the prices are just up there. And I think this would be a spot where I look to stay away from today.
Very good. G-Rise, and thoughts here on this game?
I feel a little differently about the Angels. Actually, McCullers struggled against the Tigers last time. So, I mean, it's still Mike Trout, the Angels. I mean, we're looking at, about one of the better hitting environments too in Houston. So, anytime that I think I can get a low-owned Mike Trout, that's something that I always like to explore. So, I'm not sure if I would stack up any of the Angels. Trout does seem to be a great one-off. Upton's been a little hot. Walsh has been smashing the ball, and obviously Ohtani too. So, if McCullers, he just seems to rack up a lot of pitches. I just don't see him staying in the game very long. I mean, I can't see him going any more than 5. The Angels are somebody definitely to consider. Can't say I'm going to go there, but Trout's a guy that I'm always interested in. He's questionable today, though. He may not play. He may sit out today, though. So we're gonna have to wait for that lineup.
If he sits, you're going to be off the Angels most likely.
Yeah. If you take a main piece out of a lineup like that. Generally, I like to shy away. Even if I like the stack, and then I see the lineup, and then a guy like Trout's out, I actually changes my mind about everything. So if Trout's out, then I'm not saying I have interest in McCullers, but that would definitely change my thought process on the Angels.
Yeah, and this lineup still, I'm not seeing it as out yet. So if we get it before we get off, we'll circle back and kind of talk about it. All right, next game, Pirates, Twins. And this game has a lot of postponement risk. It's supposed to rain basically all day. And it's not looking really good in order to be played. But the total in the game is 8. Minnesota has one of the bigger team totals on the slate at 4 point, almost 5, like close to 5. So 4 3/4 basically. Like I said, not good from a weather perspective. I mean, I'll just go ahead and fade this one. I think there's a lot of risk associated with it. G-Risen, are you willing to embrace the risk of the weather in this game, or will you be fading?
Yeah, the weather does look pretty scary here from what I'm seeing. It just saying that there's some really heavy rain going to come right in the middle of the game. Yeah, I think, this one's not safe at all, but, I always think to myself about the West Coast, East Coast thing. So Pittsburgh, Minnesota, obviously that's not the case. So I think they might be more apt to canceling it than, like if it was Pittsburgh, Seattle, kind of like the Boston, Seattle thing. So yeah, I think that game's got a really good chance to be postponed.
Yeah. D-Rock, are you willing to embrace the risk here of the potential weather in this one?
No, I'm not. I'm gonna be passing on this game. I mean, if weather wasn't a factor, I wouldn't mind like a killer off as a one-off. He's the min price on DraftKings still hitting in the 5-hole for the Twins, but other than that, I'll be off this game.
Yeah, we'll say the Boston Red Sox Twitter, here's what they updated. Conditions are expected to improve this afternoon, and we expect to play this game. If there are any changes to the start time, we'll update as soon as possible. So the Red Sox PR department is optimistic about that game being played. The weather will most likely keep people not off Boston, but it'll keep their ownership down quite a bit. So that could be an interesting spot to circle back and get some exposure to. Like I said, they're pretty optimistic that game does indeed play. All right, next game, we have the Reds. We have the Cardinals, 7 team total here. Castilla versus Flaherty. Team total here for Cardinals, a little above 3.5. Team total for the Reds, a little below 3.5. This is an interesting one, though, because it's two named pitchers, Castillo and Flaherty. People will most likely be on these guys. You guys both, when we talked about pitcher, weren't overly excited about either of these pitchers. Could present a nice leverage situation for you guys. Go to you first, D-Rock. What are your thoughts on these offenses here?
I like both these offenses in this game. This is another game where weather is really not going to be a concern. I think it's only like a 3-mile-per-hour wind, so nothing to even worry about. I'm not a fan of Luis Castillo right now. I mean, I've made that clear over the last week and a half or so. So, I'm willing to get some St. Louis bats. I really like the youngster Dylan Carlson hitting in the 2-hole. I'm assuming he'll be there. I haven't seen a lineup yet for this game yet, so I don't know. It might be out, but I haven't seen one. But I mean, Goldschmidt, Arenado, Molina's even on a little bit of a hot start this year a little bit. So I don't mind getting some St. Louis hitters. And then Cincinnati, I mean, they're hard to fade. Flaherty was really good his last start, but when you got Winker, Castellanos, Votto, Suarez, I like all these guys to absolutely light Flaherty up. And if I'm gonna get one of the hottest offenses in baseball at sub 10% ownership, I'll be all over it.
Yeah, I expect ownership in this one to be low because of the pitchers. I mean, these are two guys that are probably in most people's pitcher pool, which will lead to them fading the offenses. G. Risen, what are your thoughts on this game?
With the Reds lineup came out. They don't have Moose in the lineup. They got Blandino up at the top, Winkler. You know what? The Reds have kind of slowed down a little bit this week. I think Flaherty, his hard hit rate is pretty low this year. I want to say it's like 27% or something. I saw 26, something like that. So Eugenio, who's generally a guy I like, he just seems to be lost lately. I was watching a couple games the other day. He was just missing balls, swinging. I just wasn't impressed. But just looking at that Reds lineup, I am not impressed at all. You got Blandino, Winkler, Castellanos, Votto, Suarez, and then after that you got Senzel, Barnhart, India, and obviously the pitcher. So I only see 2 bats in that lineup I'm even concerned about. Just seeing that now, that just kind of makes me like Flaherty a little bit more. Castillo obviously has been up and down. He's a better pitcher than he's been showing this year, obviously. But I can't say that I'm really enamored with any of these Cardinal bats. You mentioned the wind isn't really going to come in play here. I can't see myself really looking at too many bats here in this game, to be honest. I mean, the over-under 7, I'm just going to pass on the bats.
All right, final game on the slate. Brewers, Cubs. Game total is 7. Team total for the Cubs, under 3.5. Team total for the Brewers, slightly above 3.5. 12 to 15 mile an hour wind blowing in, 42 degrees. Not great weather. We know the weather impacts Wrigley more so than basically any other field in Major League Baseball. Big downgrade to hitters here. Woodruff has been pitching phenomenally well this season. Arrieta, not the same guy, but I mean, with factoring in this win and this Brewers lineup, I think he can even find some success today. Not a spot that I'm going to be going to for offense here. That, like I said, the game total at 7, very, very low. This game, from an offensive standpoint, is a fade for me. G. Risen, is there anything that you like here?
No, you pretty much nailed it right there with Wrigley and the wind blowing in. There's some other spots here today that are obviously way better. I don't want anything to do with the Cubs against Woodruff. You look at the Brewers side, if the wind wasn't blowing, I would say, I might be interested in a little bit of the Brewers against Arrieta, but just with the weather being what it is and as chilly as it is, I just can't see myself really going there. And I don't even really see any one-offs that are standing out. I think this game here, as far as bats, are going to be a full fade, but Woodruff to me is probably one of the strongest pitching plays. So yeah, no interest in the Cubbies.
All right. D-Rock, I saw you highlighting your Anthony Rizzo photo behind you. Are you on the Cubs? Are you on Rizzo?
No. I don't. I'm not a Woodruff, so by fading Woodruff, I'm gonna have to play a couple Cubs. But the weather at Wrigley is not looking like a day for the hitters to park them out of the park there. One guy I will go to if I need to for some real cheap exposure, Nico Horner again. He's almost mid-price on DraftKings, second base shortstop eligible, hitting in the 7 hole. It's a righty-righty matchup. He's going to have no ownership whatsoever. If you want some salary relief, I don't mind going there. I don't mind going to David Bode also, who's hitting in the 2 hole. He's under 3K on DraftKings at second base. But other than that, I might have one little mini stack of the Cubs just to get away from Woodruff and try to get over that ownership hump. But I don't want to mess with that Wrigley weather.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. It's the slate. It's an interesting slate where we have a lot of bad weather. Totals are down basically across the entire slate. Not a ton of standout pitching, which is kind of surprising when you factor in these totals. But it really goes to show you how the weather is expected to affect the offensive production today. So we'll go to you, G. Risen. Final thoughts here on the slate before we get out of here.
Yeah, it should be a fun slate. Obviously Sunday, fun day. I always like sitting around watching baseball on Sunday. I will say one thing too, though, our guys in our baseball product lately has just been absolutely on fire. Uncle T yesterday smoked it with his cores. I had smoked it a few days ago with his. I know D-Rock and Steve and, a bunch of us we're grinding away and putting up some good information for the people. And, if you read, like when I write up, stuff for FanDuel, I'll, just like the other day, I put DeGrom was the best play, but I decided to go against him but all my bats crushed. But, I put flat out in my first line. I thought DeGrom was the best play, but I just kind of went after some bats. But, what I like is the diversity we have with all our guys. We're all play differently. Some guys are more stat driven. I like to more or less try to play against the masses, and I have my own theories, which you'll pick up by reading my stuff. But, I think, overall what we got going at Run Pure, I don't know how you can not be involved, not want to be involved with Run Pure and see what we got going. Our golf product is great. The MMA last night was good. So, I think we got a good thing going here, and we're going to get our core plays up there here soon, and let's crush this slate again today.
Yeah, we're all doing content today. So as soon as we get off here, we'll be polishing that up. If you're not a member already, head on over to Run Pure Sports. RPS Heater 25 gets you 25% off your first month of a monthly package. So head on over there, runpuresports.com. RPS Heater 25 is the promo code. D-Rock, final thoughts here on this slate.
Big slate, don't get too wrapped up in the ownership. I see those questions asked a lot in the Discord, about who should I play rather than ownership. 12 games, you don't need to worry about that today. Real quick, circling back though to the Seattle-Boston game, as we said, if this game is looking like it's going to play, I do have some interest in the Seattle bats, especially the top 6 or 7 in the lineup against Rodriguez. Rodriguez might get a little bit of ownership because of the name, and if the people see it's going to play. So I do like going to Seattle on this side. I mean, other than that, tonight I'll have the Showdown playbook up, some core plays up for the Showdown of the big game between the Dodgers and the Padres to close out that series and see if Tatis can go deep 2 more times against May.
Man,
Tatis
impressive run. Impressive. I mean, he's an absolute beast.
I'll tell you what, baseball is in a good spot with some of these young players, Tatis and Acuna. I mean, I think of all the sports, really, I think baseball's got some great young talent coming through. It's fun to watch.
It really does. Did you see yesterday when Tatis hit that home run off Bauer, how he covered up the eye and kept running around the bases? Because Bauer said in that last matchup, he pitched with his one eye shut.
Yeah, and then he got a round of boos all the way around the bases. But you know what? That's what makes baseball fun. I think we need more of that. Back in the day, he would have got beamed the next at bat,
Trevor Bauer said that. Bauer said he loved it.
Yeah.
He goes, if you hit a home run off me, you deserve to celebrate.
Right. Yeah. And that's that's the attitude they all should have, man. That's great. It's good competition, and all us fans, we like to see that kind of stuff, man. That's what it is about.
Yeah, I'm glad Bauer came out and made that statement, made that quote. Just makes it so much better. And yeah, I agree. Like, you need stuff like that to make it a little more entertaining. So it was very cool to see. And his comments after, put the cherry on top for sure. So, all right, that is going to do it for us. Like I said, we're going to polish up all our content here on the site. Should all be live and ready to go here relatively soon. But we're going to get on out of here. For G Rising and his Modelos, for D-Rock, I am Hoop. Good luck today in your contest.